Casey Berglund, welcome to the WorkPlay Podcast.
I'm so excited to be here today.
I'm so excited to spotlight you, everything that you've been doing visually, but also everything that you're doing in your business, because I think there's a lot of synergy there in the visuals that you're creating, plus how you're feeling and how you're working through this process. And it's just so unique the way that you're thinking about it and the way that you've found value in it. So I think this is going to be a treat. But before we get started, what is your business? How long have you been in business?
My business is called Worthy and Well, and I've actually been in business for 9 years. Wow. When I started, Worthy and Well helped women with their relationship with food and their bodies. And now it's here to support people who've gone through a big life change in defining and living into their ultimate success, becoming embodied leaders and getting paid for the work that they're really here to do. So that sounds like a really big transition. And in some ways it was, but it actually very naturally unfolded because embodiment was kind of a key factor that was woven through my work as a dietitian with people around food. That is now a really important part of how I help people, find purpose and find their next level of success.
I think that's such important work. Were you always into this type of thing, growing up, throughout your career? How did this all kind of transition into what it is now?
Well, let me speak about the purpose part, actually. Through doing a yoga teacher training, I learned the term Dharma. And from the moment I learned about it, which means life's work or vocation, from the moment I learned about it, I became obsessed with Dharma. And I was on a trip to Southeast Asia when I was 25 years old. And this question came to my mind over and over and over again, and it wouldn't leave me alone. And it was what is my Dharma? What am I here for? What's my purpose? What am I on the planet for? And I simultaneously had this other voice that was you're 25 years old, chill the fuck out. And it was met with, but what if at 25, I could do something with my life that felt purposeful? What could I do by the time I'm 70? And so this deep intention of living a purposeful life and doing work that was purposeful and getting paid to do purposeful work was a really big part of my path. And on that trip to Southeast Asia, I spent the last 5 days in a silent retreat. And while I was in meditation, I had what I would now call my first spiritual experience. I'd always been very practical. I'd practiced yoga and meditation mostly for the exercise, but I had this very visual, very auditory, very embodied experience of clarity, specifically around my purpose. And I heard the words your purpose is love, your Dharma is love. And that's not what I thought I was looking for. I was, in a job I wanted to leave. I knew I kind of wanted to start a business, but I didn't know what I was going to go home to. And that sort of deeper embodied wisdom around being love and sharing love actually guided me in a very practical way. And so I started to journal, if my purpose is love, what do I do next? And at the time I was a dietitian, and I thought about my own personal struggles with nutrition and eating disorders. And I felt into how I could support myself with self-love and people who struggled with eating with self-love. And so that guided me to actually quit my job and start my business. And then the process of working with people around food illuminated that for some reason, we always just went deeper, and it was always about love, but then it also evolved into this space of naturally helping people discover purpose and find work that aligned with their purpose and finding financial resource to pay for them doing that work. So there's a few through lines there, but there's, the through line of purpose work. And then also it's always been via embodiment that people connect to those deeper knowings that really helps to guide their path.
I love that. And going back to when you were talking about when you were 25, it just made me think about how I think there's a narrative when you're young, you shouldn't be doing purposeful things. You should be out, living life without purpose. It's almost that's what's thrown at you. Don't care so much. You're young, you know what I mean? And then it's interesting how we have like this pressure to not have purpose, and then
Yes.
it like nags at you, I think, as you get older of like, what am I doing here?
Yes.
What's happening?
Absolutely. Like, why is it that, I mean, many of the people I work with are quite a bit older. And the thing that guides them to asking those deeper questions, like, who am I and what am I here for, are often a family, a lost loved one, a death in the family, a divorce, something really monumental that shakes up their life where they're broken open. And I have no judgment toward that, because those moments that really crack someone open naturally, I think, shall make them ask those deeper questions. And it makes me grateful that I allowed myself to explore purpose without having something super monumental initially happen. And I mean, I'm now 35, going to be 36 shortly, and I've navigated a lot of pivots and transitions, and I have experienced death in my family, and I have experienced, pivoting careers, letting go of my dietitian identity. I have had these, what I would call broken open moments, and they do redirect or help you deepen. And I'm so grateful that that seed was planted so early, because those redirects haven't been extreme. They've been subtle, they've been nuanced, it's been tweaks. And now I'm in a place where I can look back on everything that I've done or created that has been in alignment with my purpose. And I see it all fits together. It's this great big ecosystem that I am very excited to, launch into the world in an even bigger way. So yeah, I think it's if someone who's young is asking about purpose, I think we should encourage the questions that they're asking and explore those questions with them.
I totally agree. For when you say embodiment, I think that's a big word, especially if, someone's watching this and they haven't felt like they've tapped into their purpose just fully yet, or maybe they're curious about that. Like, what is embodiment? What can you just take us to the basics of what that looks like, feels like? Because I know that has a lot to do with your visuals and how they turned out. So I want to go to the basics of like, what does that look like, feel like?
Mm-hmm.
What is that? What is embodiment?
Embodiment is simply bringing awareness back into the body. And if you were to Google embodiment, you wouldn't find a direct answer. You probably wouldn't find that answer. I think it is an elusive term. Bringing awareness back into the body is a simple way to describe embodiment. We use that definition in our book. I co-wrote a book called The Mind Body Way, The Embodied Leader's Path to Resilience, Connection, and Purpose, with 2 others. And we keep it simple in that way, though it could also mean, in the context of the visuals that we created together, it could also mean stepping into an archetype. So may I actually just naturally transition into how embodiment, as it relates to my photo shoots, has meant stepping into an archetype?
Please. I think this is an important topic that
Yes.
people that get it. And then people that don't, I think, have a little trouble understanding what that actually means. So please go off on that.
Yes. So I'm going to back up a little bit more. You are embodied. You are a soul in a body on planet Earth. If you're listening to this, you're embodied. If you're listening to this, you were born embodied. You were born with awareness of your body. You were born crying when you're hungry and turning your head away when you're full, without any verbal communication. Our bodies know what we want, what we need, etc. So most people follow this path of becoming disembodied through conditioning, through societal pressures, through trauma. So if I were to use myself as an example, navigating an eating disorder when I was young, that's a very disembodied state. You're literally ignoring hunger. You're literally have this eating disorder part that's telling stories. And it's not about having awareness in the body and listening to that body awareness. It's about doing your best to ignore it. So it's completely natural for humans to come into the world embodied, and that be their default, and then to move to a more disembodied state. And let me say it's kind of like a spectrum. And then to return to embodiment, often because of need, because of pain, because of heartache, because of some strong message from the body, initiates them back inside. And then we can choose to see and understand the benefits of embodiment, just like we chose to see and understand the benefits of mindfulness, which is maybe a more common term, and then practice it in ways that help to support our life. So we were talking about how embodiment is a really important tool for finding purpose. And now embodiment being a tool to create epic photos. So in the context of stepping into an archetype, for me, I just moved to Spain from Canada. My last photo shoot was on my family farm, and you could see and feel that I was returning to the farm after my dad passed, and I was there with family and horses. And those visuals very much represented that season. And then I fell in love and moved to Barcelona and brought my business here and had another photo shoot like a few months later with, Mia, an amazing photographer, a new photographer, and there was a co-creation. And so I set the intention to step into the Spanish version of me, the version of me that was already in motion, that felt more, and I say this without judgment, elevated, classy, also living in a humid country, in a new home, who moved there for romance. So I wanted to step into the version of me who was that classy, in love, up-leveled. And so that informed my choices around what I wore. And all of this is authentic to me too. I naturally wanted to change the clothing I wore when I moved, like for practical reasons. I just wanted to wear silk. I wanted to, blow out my hair for a moment instead of rock my natural curls. And in my work, I guide people through an embodiment practice called your ultimate self meditation. And it really helps to guide those people into the embodiment of a different version of them. And that in and of itself is a way that embodiment can be used for this archetypal work. And then it was really beautiful because then Mia stepped in. And whenever you're creating something with another person or with other humans, it becomes a co-creation. So I had set my intentions, and luckily I felt like Mia just understood, got the assignment. And she used her expertise, her eye for light and her creative insight to invite me to explore with her. And I felt like there were so many moments where I didn't plan for those specific photos to be taken. Like there's some with the light shining on my face just in a beautiful way. The photos in the water where the water is glistening. I wanted to capture this free, liberated, calm, classy part of me. So I wanted to go in the water, but then she brought her eye and brought it to life. And what I realized through the process, so the photo shoots are also a transformational process in and of themselves. I realized that this version of me wants her marketing to be art. Mm-hmm. And claiming that right now, I actually forgot that. I forgot that insight that I received in the photo shoot that I want my marketing to be art, because I've been a bit stuck with where to go next with these visuals. And that's a great reminder for me that that's part of it. And something shifted energetically through that process of creating art, and really aligning with fully embodying this Spanish version of me, this classy, elevated Spanish version of me.
I just got chills down my legs when you said that, because it's so true how because I told you before we started recording, there are people through our process that take this embodied route and they really lean in to this, and they feel and see the signs and the storylines of their life. And then they take that and they put that into their marketing, into their visuals, and things explode for them when they do that. And then there's people, you know, that take the more logical route, the more like, all right, every quarter I need to like launch something new and I need to like think about my marketing from a logical perspective. And I think like this is just a testament to say like, what if you tried it a different way? Or what if you leaned in this area in this way? Because I have seen so many WorkPlay members create so many different types of campaigns. I've seen, you know, campaigns do really, really well. I've seen campaigns do not as great. And so there is like, we have such a experience of like the wide spectrum, and always, 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 always the embodied campaigns that are like truly from like a storyline of their life, of what they're feeling, they always connect with your consumer more, always, because they can see what they can feel, the energy that you're outputting, right? And so I think even when you do have like a co-creator, and we talk about this on our content team all the time of, you know, how do we tap into that when we get in front of a WorkPlay member, right? And even when you have a co-creator that's trying to tap into that, if you're not open to that, it can be really hard to co-create with someone that's not open to that, which I don't know if you see that in your own line of work as well, where if like you have a closed off wall, it's hard to like see the thing, hear the thing, find the thing.
Totally. Yeah. And in those cases, like if we are talking about my work and clients, some people, because of their past experiences or trauma or what have you, are guarded or armored and simply require more rapport, simply require more time and more, dare I say, unconditional love. Dare I come back to this purpose? Like people take their guard off with me in sessions because I embody love and I set an intention to surround the space with unconditional love so that that person feels safe to soften, so that we can actually do the work. Because the work is sometimes scary, going into the body or the unknown or exploring emotions or feelings. It's like you got to go through the gunky emotions to get to the gold intuition that actually guides the path. And so I think that's true for photos as well, is like, I was nervous. I was like, I don't know if I'm ready to be captured and seen, etc. And then I like softened and got into it and, you know, stepped into my body. And I think we got the gold inside there.
Tell me about the process of like softening, because I think from a WorkPlay team perspective, we see the tense, we see like the other side of the almost like when you're nervous, when you're feeling like, oh God, like scared about, and the fear of being in front of the camera. How do you soften that when you are in front of the camera to like actually tap into that energy that you're talking about?
Well, where I'm called to go is kind of a nervous system lesson.
Let's hear it.
What you're asking is, how do you allow the nervous system to downregulate? How do you allow yourself to relax, or how do you co-create that with someone else, regulate the nervous system so that they can be? And the things that people don't consider are your environment. Your environment sets the tone for how safe you feel. And so especially if it's your first photo shoot. So this is interesting because I did my first photo shoot at my family's farm, which was not my environment. I moved away for 17 years and then came back after my dad died, and I was at the family farm. And, you know, where do our conditioned experiences come from, but from our like familial experiences? And so I was far more tense there because it wasn't my space, and it was perfect. And I moved through my own sort of transformational journey, navigating some of the uncomfortable pieces of me, like being photographed and my family knowing about it or watching it or what have you. Whereas in Spain, I was in my home and I was alone, and Mia came to me. So she came into the space that I felt comfortable in. So the environment mattered. And part of the environment is who you're with. And so the person on the other side mattered. So Mia came in my house and I was like sweating buckets. I needed to change my shirt. And she just like sat on the floor and like put her lens on and we chit-chatted for a bit. And I think that is important. The rapport when you're starting a relationship helps to start the softening process. So those are very simple things that matter ahead of time. And maybe I would even add to that your own personal rituals that help you feel safe and secure. Like I would use embodiment practices. I would do breaths and feel into my body and observe what I'm noticing to also support me with like down regulating. Nature is inherently calming as well. We co-regulate with nature. And so our photo shoot was like heavily in nature as well. And so that matters. And there's so much more I could say, but basically when you understand nervous system regulation, you understand how to drop into a more calm state, to drop some of the armor and to soften into the process and creativity. Because creativity only happens when you're in your window of tolerance, like when you're not in this very hyperactive, anxious space.
That is so true. I cannot stress that as well in terms of creativity, because I don't even think we realize how wound up we are, especially if we're living in big cities or like even, it's just, and I've been to Europe many times. It's very like, whew, okay.
It
like,
is.
It has a different energy to it, right? And I think sometimes we're so used to that, like, especially in the US at least, we're so used to like the go, go, go. There's just like that undercurrent of like that hustle culture. And it doesn't work well with, like you're saying, with creativity.
Unless that's part of the brand, right? Unless like being on the go and moving fast and like, some people, everybody's body is different. So some people actually do feel safer in a busy city, though I think biologically that's not most of us. Most of us will feel more relaxed in nature.
That's interesting that you say that, because I've lived in Miami for a while now, and Miami is so fast. Sometimes people come to it and they're just like, oh gosh, like I cannot do this city. But for me, it is actually very calming to have energy around me and flowing. But I have to be like still within that, if that makes sense. Like I myself cannot be stressed in that. What are some of like the symptoms of maybe someone who is disembodied? Are there certain like storylines that you can say like, okay, this isn't serving me? Because I think sometimes it's hard to tell. And the reason why I ask is if a WorkPlay member is coming into the process, but they're not even recognizing maybe how they're coming in disembodied, how can they recognize that?
Well, I work with a lot of highly intellectual people, kind of like highly intellectual people or highly spiritual people. And right there, there's often like highly in your head. And also, this is most of us, most of the time. So let's not pretend that even like I, as a teacher of embodiment, am fully present to my body. If that were the case, I wouldn't get anything done, because we need autopilot habits to like help our lives. So the goal isn't to be fully embodied all of the time. But if someone they literally look tight in their body, if they like make fists with their hands and don't even realize it, or their shoulders are up to their ears, or they have redness on their face, or they're moving really fast and they're bumping into things, talking a lot, looking to the sky, like there are these body-based cues that they're really in their head or in maybe anxiety, etc. And so what's really cool to know is that just like when we were babies, we required that our parents picked us up, or parent or caregiver picked us up when we cried. We required what's called co-regulation. We required others to help us calm. So in the case of a photo shoot, it would be really cool to see, like, I feel like your creators naturally do this because they have like beautiful personalities and they've, they're experienced with working with new people. So they naturally, without even maybe knowing it or maybe consciously, are doing things to co-regulate the other person. So just like when we're babies, we need co-regulation before we can self-regulate. And I would say a WorkPlay team member can really play a huge role in co-regulating so that that person can self-regulate. So that that person can remember to like, oh, I need to take a breath. I should drink some water. Maybe it's time for a snack. Like it's easy in a photo shoot to just like plow through and not have any food. But like, if you're hungry and thirsty, you might have something else going on that might be making you kind of edgy, right? So just remembering those like basic needs. We're like animals after all. We need to eat, we need to drink, we need to relax, we need to be around other humans to help with the embodiment process.
Well, I think sometimes people come into the process and they're like, I got to get everything in all on this one day. We only have this one day, that sort of thing. And then you feel like you can't eat. You feel like you can't listen to your body. You feel like you can't like sit for a second and just like think about what you want to do, because it's so intense, right? Because like you're creating something.
It is intense, yeah.
Yeah. I've done enough shoots. I've been on enough shoots. I've sat in on enough shoots. It's like that is a very normal reaction especially when you're creating for your business, right? Like you've kind of like have maybe a storyline in your head, like this is high stakes. I have to get this done. I have to make this perfect. And I have to be the one in front of the camera to do it. Do you ever feel like that? Have you felt like that?
Oh yeah, I definitely, it's like you always want to get the biggest bang for your buck. And I think it's really served me well, not just in the context of photo shoots, but everything that I invest in. Like what actually is the value? Is it getting as many photos as possible in this context? Or is it getting the best, most embodied photos possible? What is the intention? If I invest in a course or a program and I receive the exact golden nugget that I needed in the first week of the program, and then I don't do any of the other stuff, I got exactly what I needed. I got my money's worth. It's not about finishing it or getting all the things. It's about receiving what you came there for. And so I think that that's an important thing for people who are doing a photo shoot to think about is like, what is the true goal underneath the goal? What is the main golden nugget that I'm here to receive? And how can I set the day up to support that? It also never hurts to have food as part of your photo shoot. Like we had a really luxurious charcuterie in the park and I just ate and Mia took photos and, we had some wine and drank some water and that really helped. It really helped for the next part of our time together.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Also, I'm just like picturing like European Spain charcuterie. I mean, wine. This is the best photo shoot ever. I'm curious to know, what value do you take from the WorkPlay process and our method, like that's specific for you, and how are you carrying that into your business?
I'll circle back to the embodiment part of an archetype or embodying a next level self piece of it. I feel like having images that represent that are like anchors into that energy, if that makes sense.
100%.
So for me, and even, my last photo shoot at my family farm, it was really important for me to do it there. It was so different. There were cowboy boots and horses, like I said. And that was key and so meaningful to me to have that season captured for my own self. Like I'll have those pictures forever. So on a very personal level. And also, especially when a brand is rooted in authenticity and lifestyle, I think it's also important to note those transitions. So for me, I could see having these very different photos as disjointed, like from the first photo shoot to the second. Or I could see them as I literally teach people how to embody their next level self and take them on a journey of self-discovery and the evolution of purpose and the evolution of business. So it's actually so in alignment to show we can change. We're not the same people all the time. We're going on a transformational journey. We're multidimensional, and I can play in this space. So I feel like having these versions of me captured helped me anchor those versions of me in a way that, and also was very clarifying too, helped me to like clarify the vibe that I'm embodying with my clients or the energy that I'm transmitting with my clients. So that's been really helpful. And yeah, for me, there's probably some really good reasons why I haven't shared as many of the photos outward as of course I could. Like, you can always do more. And I also really trust in the timing.
I love that.
Maybe I just wanted those for me for a while. You know, there's some of them that are really fucking sexy, and I don't know if I'm ready to put those out into the world yet, or if I want to. You know? Yeah. So it definitely brought up some stuff for me to clarify, what is this for? And how do I want to use these photos? And what is the purpose of my business? And where are my boundaries? You know? And also, how can I move through my stuff around being seen? There's like so much to it underneath that gets to get looked at. And to me, that's really valuable because I care about self-awareness and I care about the way in which entrepreneurship, I don't know if you found this too, is like the greatest personal development journey you'll ever go on. It brings up all your stuff. So photo shoots are the same. It's like, that's going to be a personal development journey in and of its own essence.
It's so important that you're saying this. It's so important because there is a deeper current when it comes to photo shoots. And I've always wondered this as we, grow the WorkPlay process and more people come into it. It just becomes more and more apparent of like that underlying deeper thing that happens when you get in front of a camera. And I always think of it like a mirror, like you're able to actually objectively see yourself the way that your energy is like transmuting off of you in a way. When you get the gallery back, you're like, whoa, that's me. Like that is, it's very crazy. I actually just did an engagement shoot with Mia. And so I know how she works as well. She's very good at doing that, as with everyone on our team, but she's a Pisces. I'm a Pisces. I'm like, you're so watery and amazing. And there is something when you look at yourself in this archetype, in this way this storyline that you've created that is so like, it's so interesting and almost kind of healing in a way. I always think of it like self-care.
Yeah. May I ask what you felt about yourself and your love through looking at your engagement photos? I did see a couple of them, and I'm just like curious what that was for you.
I love that question. It's interesting because I created this process. So I'm very methodical about how a piece of content comes to life. And so with my engagement photos, that was no different. I was like, I wanted to embody a certain feeling in what someone is how someone's perceiving this, right? And so I was thinking long and hard about it. And so that's why I chose the location that I did. I agree with you. Location has a lot to do with it. So Paris was, something that in the energy that I was feeling, I was like, that just sounds like so divine in how I think about our relationship and like running around Paris and like this idea of like this over the top romantic side. And then I also thought about it from like an edgy, like side of like how I feel our relationship actually is, you know, behind closed doors, where it's like, it is kind of sexy. It is kind of like push and pull. And so I wanted that to kind of come through the photos. And we're also very independent. So you don't like I don't know if I've shared like the ones that look like this yet, but like where it's like, we're kind of like standing almost like fully in each other in our power, not so much like all over each other. And so there's like parts of that too. So there's different storylines that you can like pull through. I feel like that you can not manipulate, but like shine a light on. And that's what I did in my engagement photos. And that's how I thought about it. And that's how I think you can think about a lot of things when it comes to your visuals and the storylines that you create, because even like in your offer, right? I think about everything in business. I'm like, all right, these engagement photos got to sell my family to come to France as well. Like, you know, I'm like, I always have my marketing cap on. And so that was also a piece of it. And so I think like from like a marketing standpoint, thinking about what your clients need or the person that you're trying to communicate to, I think what they need to see in order to bridge that gap with that storyline, with that visual too. And it's interesting that the storyline of the second shoot is so different than the first shoot, but there is a bridge that you create with your client, with your person, with each of those storylines. So in itself, even though they're not cohesive with each other, they do have an underlying current that is cohesive, like energetically, but they're cohesive in itself. You know what I mean? And so because it's cohesive in its quarter, and like that quarter of content is cohesive, people get to step into that and fully and embody that with you, right? That's my opinion. That's how I see it.
Yes.
But I don't know if that's how you feel.
Yeah, I do. And I feel like this is less true with the Spain photos. I also feel like from the moment the photo shoot is done, I've already become the next version of me.
Ooh, I love that.
Like, because of the way in which that's a transformational journey in and of itself. It's like, can we just do a photo shoot every day to accurately, you know what I mean? No, that's not practical. But when you're someone...
I love photo shoots. I don't know about every day.
When you're someone who changes really fast, it's like, it's interesting to see that too.
I totally agree. Because you get to like, but it's also fun. Like you get to create something, like you get to be something that maybe you haven't seen yourself be before. And then you get to see a new side.
Yeah. So this might be a bit of a faux pas, but I noticed when I asked you how you felt when you looked at your engagement photos, you told me about the strategy behind it, which I love and offered so much value to me and I'm sure to the listener. And I'm curious, how did you feel and what like personally happened inside of you when you looked at your engagement photos?
This is how I know you're good at what you do. You're like, no, we're going deeper.
Like, she just evaded the question.
I love it.
She just gave me her business armor for the purposes of the podcast, which is also okay. So you can tell me if that's a boundary. But I am genuinely curious because I'm sure that those photos changed you too as a person.
No. Okay. If we're just fully talking about the feeling, like I felt so, maybe this is the wrong word, but I felt like so satisfied because I got to see the way that I feel, if that makes sense. All the time. Like I got to see the relationship in the way that I creatively wanted to see it, but it evoked the feelings. And that's how I process things. I from like a very early age, like I wanted to capture the feeling through the photo or through the content, and not from like a showing off way, from a, wow, I got to capture that in like a little memento, you know what I mean? And so that's why it was so amazing to see all of that. And I mean, poor Mia, we shot for a very long time that day because I'm like, we gotta go here because there were so many different like things. Like there was like a cafe scene where, you know, I wanted to capture the feeling of like our playfulness of just like doing a regular thing. But I think a lot of it too is like for yourself to see it, right? It's like there's something about feeling it, but then there's another thing about actually getting to see the feeling. And I think that's what it did for me. It allowed me to see the feeling that I feel every single day and that I've felt for years. And being able to capture that was really satisfying almost for me, because I'm like, that was the first time we did a full blown shoot. And, you know, I've made him be my little prop before and like, you know, take photos of him and stuff. But that was the first time it was like, you know, methodical, thought out. And I think also something about traveling to the place, right? So, almost having like skin in the game of like, we are doing this, like we're going to put into this energy, and it almost like contains it in a way.
Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah. I'm definitely hearing the part about witnessing. Like you can feel firsthand what's happening inside of yourself, or what you feel in your love story, what you feel inside yourself with your partner. And then it's another thing to be witnessed in that feeling by someone else. And then it's a whole other thing to have an opportunity to witness yourself.
Yes.
And it sounds like photos do that for you. And I would agree that is totally something that I received that I rarely receive. You know, like when I coach someone, it's my job to mirror them back to them. So they get to be witnessed, they get to like be validated. But then to like witness yourself through imagery is amazing. So I love that you shared that.
Yeah. Is that what you were?
Yeah.
The assignment. That's like my.
I asked you how you felt, and you said you felt like you got to witness, you got to feel the feeling through witnessing it portrayed through the images.
Yes, 100%. And I'm sorry if I'm bringing it back to business, but I see it all the time where people feel their business, they feel their purpose, they feel the thing. And then being able to witness the thing in front of them, that's why I always call it a mirror, because it truly, like, whether you like what you see in the mirror or not, it's going to reflect back to you, right? And so I think that can be very very informative of, you know, maybe where you're at in your own body when you get to see what's being shown in front of you.
Yeah, totally. I remember first looking at the images and feeling like, wow, like, am I really that calm? And then, yeah, am I really that sensual? Of course. Like, it was like, am I really? Yeah, that is who I am. Yes, indeed. You can't fake that shit. Do I really love charcuterie that much? Absolutely. And in a park? Do I do this on the regular? Yes. You know?
Oh, I love that. I love that. And then it's just like, when you can see yourself, then how big can it get? Like, there's no limits, right? Yeah. And it's like, that's when I think it gets really exciting. This conversation has been so good. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your experience.
You're so welcome. I had so much fun with you.
I did too. You as well. And you are very calm, I will say. Like, you have a very grounding presence. So that is accurate. Where can everyone find you? See all the beautiful content once you're ready to share it. Where can they connect with you?
So the beautiful content, once I'm ready to share it, there's some from the last shoot on there on Instagram at Casey Berglund. So I'm sure that will be in the show notes. And then our website is letyourbodylead.com.
I love that. Thank you so much. And if you guys want to shoot with Mia, who's on the WorkPlay content team, she's based in Europe. So anyone who wants to fly over to Europe, you have a treat waiting for you.
I told Mia that I was going to book her for a shoot with my partner, Eric, who
Mhm.
is a very private person, doesn't love photos, et cetera, et cetera. And she told me that it was her job to make him love his photos, to
Oh,
make him look good. It was her job to pull that out of him. And so, yeah, I think that that's something that is still on my list of things to do, is to do something with him. And I'm inspired by your story about your engagement
oh my
photos.
gosh, you have to. I feel like it's so fun. It's so
Yeah,
fun. Ah, I love
beautiful.
it. I cannot wait to see them. Thank you so much, Casey.
You're welcome.